Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. Welcome to Aeon Byte. My name is Miguel Connor and I am your Pompatus of Gnosis, that madman across the waters of creation. And great to see everybody here on this Freya Day. For those of you here in the USA, I hope you've started celebrating your holiday weekend, your Memorial Day, and you can recharge your batteries and optimize your gnosis in this age of Hermes, Philip K. Dick world, and Gnostic times. And the topic today, well, I'm always very excited about this. We will be discussing the Lord of the Rings, an esoteric decode. If you really want true archons, go watch Rings of Power, because that is truly an archonic show. But I'll probably hate watch the second season because it really is that bad. It's like people who really hate Tolkien. But nobody here hates Tolkien. All three of us love Tolkien, and that includes our guest, David Block. David, thank you very much for coming back and sharing this gnosis with us.
Thank you, Miguel. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and with the audience and with Graham. And I hope people will like the decode of Lord of the Rings.
I'm
It's
sure
the
we
third part
will.
as well.
Awesome. Well, Graham, how are you doing?
Doing very well. Looking forward to hearing, all about Tolkien and his take on technology and all that underlying stuff that's esoteric.
Awesome. And we do have a little guest here. Found this little monster in the woods, so now he's part of the team. All right, you go play, little one. Okay. And yes, I see already the crowd joining in again for later on. If you have any questions, please super chat them and we will get to them. Graham will take care of the chat room so it doesn't turn into Chatico. Before we get started, of course, I'd like to say that it is truly a pleasure that David will be joining us at Astron Gnosis this August 9th and 10th. And David, you will be discussing one of the coolest goddesses, right?
Yeah, Hecate. We have done some invocation of the lady and spoke to her, and she had come into my life, and I will share the experience with you all. So it will be gnosis from the lady herself.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And yes, we have some great guests, but it will be experiential. We will have a social with some prayers and party. We will have 2 workshops on Sophianic Gnosticism for you to enrich your soul and alter your state of mind. And it will be amazing. And in fact, here I have let me do the page real quick. As you can see. 9th and 10th at the Theosophical Society. And it's an amazing place. The energy is just incredible. It will be 2 days with several guest speakers. Again, workshops. There will be guests selling wares and books and stuff like that. We'll have a social, perhaps 2, which are truly a blast and where real gnosis is shared. Here are some of our guests. We've got Richard Smoley, who will lead with Sophia. Ola Wolny will be visiting from Norway. Of course, Chris Knowles will be hitting it out of the house. Just booked Maja Daou. She will be discussing Sophia, and she will also be giving a workshop. Also a workshop, we got Dan Morse and Diane Kelly. They have spent so much research on Sophia, both from a historical and a spiritual level. Mitch Horowitz is going to kill it too, as he's going to be talking about altered states of mind. James True and Steven Snyder return, and their presentations are unique and exclusive and amazing. My friend Rhymes should be joining us from Japan, and she's going to bring so much art. And there's Mr. David Block, and we've got Dr. Will Peter, who will be discussing a lot about AI and alternative realities and really cutting edge stuff. And last and certainly least, I will, of course, do some talking. I don't know why it says Miguel Connor in. I've got to fix that. So hope to see everybody there at the Astron Gnosis. And let me know if you have any questions. We are accepting sponsorships, so it's so much going on, and it's truly a game-changing event. So, well, now let's get on to Tolkien. Anything you want to say, David, or shall we just jump into the slides?
Yes, let us jump into it.
Let's go. Saturn is not patient. Cronus is limiting our time as we speak. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so this is the third part of a 3-part series. We talked in part 1 about the Apocalyptic Time Clock Matrix, End Times and Revelations. And in part 2, the Tower, Necromancy, and the Search for Eternity. And this is part 3, the Esoteric Decode of Lord of the Rings. And of course, it's about Tolkien's famous books. I hope I can make sense why it should be the third part in this series, but it is. So I will do my best to connect it. And to decode Lord of the Rings is a very risky project because you can have many different takes on it. And of course, I will focus on the esoteric stuff in the books, not the characters. I will not talk about Gandalf for half an hour and stuff like that, who he was, but I will mention him. But for the most part, I mention the characters when it benefits in the esoteric decode I'm doing. And the books is Lord of the Rings, and there are 3 of them, but Tolkien written a lot of books. And I will go back to Silmarillion as well, and a little bit from the Hobbits. So this presentation is 11 chapter long. The first one is Tolkien, the second one, the tape, Middle Earth and the Ages, Sauron, characters, the road, the ring, the tower, the boatman, the fourth age, and the last chapter 11 is today. So let's talk about Tolkien a little bit. Yeah, Tolkien was a professor in language, and that in of itself is interesting for this presentation. I'll explain it in the end of the presentation. But he was a professor from England in language, and it was very interesting in myth and history and stuff like that. And in the Lord of the Rings, they have put together a lot of different myths from different regions of the world and combined them into a lore or a narrative. So he's very knowledgeable about religion, myth, esoteric stuff, I would argue, and I will make my best to make that clear. Yeah, he was born 3rd of January 1892, and he died 2nd September 1973. He fought in World War One, and of course it made a huge impact on him. Now, this is a thing people always come back to, the fact that he was a Catholic. But to be a Catholic doesn't mean that much. Catholicism looked different in Brazil than in England and so on. You have different kinds of Catholics. And Catholic is a very broad religion. You have different orders. For example, the Jesuits. And the Jesuits is for sure an esoteric order in the Catholic faith or in the Vatican. And I believe Tolkien knew a lot about this, and I believe that Tolkien didn't like what he saw, what has taken place in the Catholic faith. Maybe he was a Catholic, but I think he was a critical one. So in this presentation, I will use the 3 books of the Lord in the series of Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit will be a little bit in there, I think, and then Silmarillion. Silmarillion is very important because it explains what happens in the Lord of the Rings. So if you haven't read the Silmarillion, you still understand what's going on, but you have a much broader understanding of it. So it's a very important book, and I loved the Silmarillion when I read it. I read it more than one time. Some people have a hard time with it because a lot of names, age, religion, and gods and stuff like that. But for me, it really, it's very important to have a more full understanding of the Lord of the Rings and what's going on in those books. So very interesting thing happened, and this was on InfoWars. I don't remember the year it was, but Alex Jones invited a member from the Tolkien Society to discuss a tape, and this tape had disappeared, and it appeared, and the tape ended up within the Tolkien Society, also the Tolkien group. And this recordings was recorded 1958, and it was Tolkien who talked on the tape. Now the quality was very bad, so they tried to polish the tape and enhance the quality of it. So that we have very little from the tape. I don't know what happens to the tape. They would send it to BBC to help them, and then I think it disappeared.
Oh, no.
Maybe not the best choice, but they still had this interview on InfoWars, and I really liked that part of InfoWars. And I downloaded it because Alex Jones' channel InfoWars was taken out from YouTube. They canceled it, so the clip can't be found anywhere. But I download everything I like and put it on a hard drive. It's like 5 terabytes of information in there. A lot of things have disappeared. This clip ended up in my hard drive, so I have uploaded it on my channel, YouTube channel. If you want to listen to it in full. What we can say about the tape is that Tolkien is talking more straightforward than he ever have done. There are some interviews with him with BBC interviewers or whatever, and he's very dry on them. He don't want to talk about his work and so on. And I understand him, because you can't tell people what it is about. You have to lure them in and then allow people to figure it out on their own. They have to do the work. Otherwise, they can't be explained in a short interview, like 5 to 10 minutes. It's ridiculous. Therefore, Tolkien is very dry and boring. But on the interviews, I think it's very funny, because he knows that he can't explain it for this interviewer or this journalist anyway. So he's just he don't try. But in this tape, he's talking for excluded society of people, or a group of people. They called it the Hobbits dinner, and it was for like fans of his work. And this was 1958, and some recorded this speak of Tolkien. A lot of the speak haven't been heard because the tape disappeared, but some was they played up some of it on Alex Jones' channel InfoWars during this interview with a man named John. And I hope it is correct now, because it was a person on my YouTube channel who mentioned his real name. So I hope it is John. Very nice man, and he did a great work, I think, on this interview. Well, this is some stuff Alex Jones and John is talking about. So it's not only Tolkien who is talking here. I will make a difference when it's Tolkien. I will try to I always tell you it is Tolkien who say this. And this is speculation between Alex and John, and it also comes from the letters of Tolkien. So they are talking about that Tolkien didn't write in allegory. The ring is a symbol for power. The ring as a symbol for technology. They are talking about technology and machines and future technology. That Tolkien was a visionary, and you can see that technology will just enhance and take over more and more from the natural into the unnatural and infiltrate human life or take over our life. Now Tolkien is talking about corruption and confusion. Tolkien is talking about they play a multidimensional chess game. The public barely plays checkers. This power are many-headed, a hydra. Power to change the natural into an artificial construct. This is Tolkien who are talking about stuff like that. I don't quote him, but that is what he is alluding to. Alex and John is talking about machines and robots in combination to what Tolkien is talking about, or their conclusion, what Tolkien is talking about. Alex is mentioned Terminator and Skynet. They're talking about computer chips, magicians pulls the strings in the background, a hidden elite, technology and an elite class of privileged men. Tolkien is talking about they use technology to mislead nations. He calls his audience hobbits, and this is important. He calls his audience hobbits. This is a hobbit's dinner. The magicians distance themselves from nature. Destruction of the natural in favor of the unnatural. Tolkien says, refuse to worship any of the Hydra's head. The Babel builders. What is their next move? And he is talking about the future. And this is very important for this 3-part series. He's talking about the Babel builders. He's talking about the Tower of Babylon. And of course, this is my archetype, the tower, he's talking about here. Tolkien, and this is a quote from the tape. I do not see any Sauron, but I do see many descendants of Saruman. We do not have any magical weapons on our own, but let us survive all the wizards. So that's very powerful, and I think if you understand what they're talking about there, you will also understand Lord of the Rings, because they really have the main theme in those quotes. And I will go back to it because it's very important for my Esoteric Decode. And I think you all know, if you have listened to my first 2 parts, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So let's talk a little bit about Middle-earth now.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And Middle-earth is named Middle-earth for a reason, of course. Tolkien didn't do anything like a coincidence. It was very, very into details and a perfectionist. So what is Middle-earth? Well, the real name of Middle-earth is Sumeria. That's the region called Middle-earth. And in the Sumerian region, you have city-states called Uruk and Ur, for example. And for everyone who had read the Tolkien, they know that these names come up, or at least Uruk-hai, like Uruk, Uruk-hai. The Uruk-hai from Sumeria, or that region of our reality, our planet. So you have a reference to Sumeria in Uruk-hai, and also in the tower, of course, Babylon's tower. was built in Babylon. Babylon was part of Sumeria, city-state in Sumeria. So a lot of things is a reference to to Sumeria, and the name Middle Earth is a reference to Sumeria. Middle Earth is Sumeria. Tolkien also talk about ages, and we have 4 ages or 3 ages in the Lord of the Ring, and when the Lord of the Rings ends, a 4th age starts, the age of man. So he, I think he got this from the Kali Yugas, the Hindu Yuga circle. And in the Lord of the Ring, and you can make this a little bit different, like, right? So it's not like,
Right.
but for the most part, people think the first age is 590 years.
Right.
But you can have another opinion if you want to. The second age is 3,441 years. The third age is 3,021 years. And the 4th age, we don't know. The 4th age starts when the 3rd age is finished, ends. But you can see use this Yuga idea from the Hinduic religion and Vedas. But it's also in other religions, and the idea of destruction and rebirth is a recurring theme in Indian, the nature-based religions and so on.
Right.
Sauron, who is he? And this is it's a very tricky question, and we'll give you 2 different ideas. But if we going back to the history of Sauron to know about him a little bit, what Tolkien was writing out clear in Silmarillion, Sauron was a servant of Morgoth. So Morgoth is the great devil here. So it's not Sauron who is the devil or the main evil god, but Sauron is a servant of Morgoth. And Sauron was active in Aman, and Aman is the god's country, so it's very old. The first age ends with the defeat of Morgoth. So now Sauron is the main guy, right? Because Sauron is a servant of Morgoth, and he has to take on the war against the good after the defeat of Morgoth. So now Sauron is the main villain in the saga, not Morgoth, who are defeated. In the second age, we have a very interesting story about Numenor. And this is how we know that Tolkien was into very deep esoteric stuff. So I'm not deep, but he's talking about Atlantis here, of course, and the destruction of Atlantis.
Right.
And in this, in Silmarillion, it is called Numenor. And Sauron infiltrates Numenor. And this is also what I'm talking about in my presentations a little bit, that it was 2 different factions, one who are based on technology and esoteric stuff, and one esoteric faction, or who think that, or who use an esoteric method, and use their own body as their temple. They don't add any technology to it. Now, I'm not saying that technology is bad, right? We use technology now, but when you combine technology with esoteric method and with your body, you should be very careful, I think. So it's not.
Do you hear that, transhumanist? Do you hear that, transhumanist?
Yeah, this is a lot about them. The second age ends with the defeat of Sauron by the last alliance. Sauron loses his physical body, and this is the reason why he is this eye now, the eye in the tower. So he cannot take physical form any longer, and this is very interesting if you compare it to Sumerian mythology, where the Anunnaki lost their ability to take physical form in our reality. They are spirits, right, Anunnaki. I'm not into the alien paradigm crowd at all. The Anunnaki is spirits that can take physical form. It seems. I can't prove that, because I haven't invoke any Anunnaki in front of me. But everyone can learn how to communicate with Anunnaki. I haven't done so. But they exist, and I don't care what people say. It's not my problem if people don't understand that these forces exist. I communicate with them anyway.
Right.
Sauron becomes the eye, the tower. He also loses a lot of his power. Manipulation becomes the game, because he ain't this powerful anymore. Now we have to change his game plan a little bit, to infiltrate and to use wit and to be outsmart his enemies. And this is why the ring comes about, because he put in his own self into the ring and corrupts the other 19 he had given away to the race of men, dwarves, and elves. So they become corrupted through his ring of control. And of course, this is kind of a broadcast device, right?
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. Everyone got their own television here and watch news and shit. But this is a ring, of course. So who is Sauron? And this is a very tricky question, as I said before, because for many writers, they don't pick one god or one demon. They combine different elements of them. It's very hard to say that Tolkien choose one. I think it's a combination of two. So first off, and the easiest answer is, of course, that Sauron is Saturn. Sauron is the Lord of the Rings. Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. Saturn has an eye. Saturn is the demiurge. Now, this is, of course, perfect for me because I pinpointed Ninurta Saturn as
Right.
and Jehovah's retarded demiurgic son, right? So then it's perfect. But it is a little bit trickier than this because Tolkien is also a Catholic. Now, did he know that Jehovah is Enlil and that Enlil's son is Ninurta Saturn? Maybe he doesn't. So therefore, he believes that Saturn, Ninurta, is evil. And this is a very sad thing with the Christians, of course. I don't think they know what they are worshiping, of course, with their faith. And that's the purpose. But you can also as easily say that Sauron is Samael. And now people may say, but Samael is a left-hand path. I am into the left-hand path. And
yeah. What are you doing, David?
I have exposed myself here, right? So, of course, now the Christian will say, yeah, he's Samael. And, of course, I will say, yeah, he's Saturn. You know how it is. But I will rather argue that he's a combination of them, because you can make a case for both ends. And from a left-hand path perspective, I don't view Samael as an evil demon, but Samael is a harsh demon you have to work with him and overcome him. Otherwise, you can fall prey, and the opposite may occur, that you become a fallen one. In a fallen state. You don't want that. If you go into this left-hand path, you have to do it for the right reason, right focus, with wisdom and so on. But Samael can be a harsh teacher, so it's not wrong. And I think Tolkien, if he's a Catholic, from his perspective, this is evil, of course. This is dark. And that's how we perceive the Cliffotic tree as well. I perceive the Cliffotic tree as something you have to work yourself through, your own darkness, your own shadow, and transform. However, Samuel is the poison of God. He rules over one of the Cliffots in the dark tree. He rules over Mercury, but before it was Mars. So this is an important thing, because the Sauron seems to be quite warlike, right? So Mars is a perfect take for Saturn and Mars, of course, in combination. These forces. Matter, technology, war, strife, rules, regulation, hierarchy, dictatorship, and so on. And the poison of God is a perfect reference to what happened when you turn the ring, or if you take it on, rather, right? You get poisoned, and this is exactly what happened when you drink the poison of Samuel. If you invoke Samuel, it can come at you and show you a cup. And if you drink from it, the unholy grail, your reality becomes distorted. It's like you have taken a lot of different drugs and you become quite lost for a moment.
Yeah.
And you can see this in Space Odyssey 2001 in the end, when he's sitting at the table and he drops off the glass on the floor and it shakes and he's distorted, sees himself and so on. This is not an evil act from Samuel's point of view. It is to show you that you live in an illusion and you can change and you can transform it. It's very malleable. It is not rigid, it's not fixed. But that experience in and of itself can be very harsh, and it's hard ordeals you have to go through to see the truth. Do you want the truth or not? And if you want it, you have to go through darkness and scary stuff. Nothing is gained for free.
Nothing.
And Frodo
No
knows
pain, no gain, as they say here.
Exactly. And Frodo knows all about this, right?
Yeah.
But it is Samuel who frees Frodo, because his defeat that allows Frodo to leave Middle-earth to the gods' country, right? So he overcomes this strife and transform in a way. Well, then we have Gandalf, and Gandalf is a very big character in Silmarillion, where Tolkien explains who they are and so on. And Gandalf is a Maya, and a Maya is a half god, you can say, working for one of the gods. And the gods is called Valar in Tolkien's lore. So the Maya serves the Valar, and Gandalf is one of them. So he's a half god, you can say. Gandalf was born in Aman, the god's country, as a Maya. Manwe the Valar sent him to Middle-earth to wage war against Sauron. In Middle-earth, he was one of the Istari, magicians fighting Sauron. So they were there to try to defeat Sauron. And that's the order with Saruman as the leader for this Istari, this magician's order. And this is also the reason why you have to question how Catholic Tolkien was, because here you have magicians, heroes that are into magic, you have fantasy, and a lot of Christian hates Tolkien and Lord of the Rings because of that. So you have to ask yourself, how much of a Catholic was Tolkien? I had a friend who met Tolkien a wonderful lady. And she said, yeah, he was a gentleman. He took care of us and taking care of me, and had a wonderful time. Yeah, very nice lady. She's quite old now. She lived here on Gotland for a while and came to my lectures. So she saw, so she saw my lecture on Tolkien here on this island of mine. Yeah, it was very, very cool.
Yeah, it is.
So he seems to be a very nice man, but how much of a Catholic he was, I question that. And what kind of a Catholic was he? But I can't prove it. And then you have Sauron, of course, and in the Lord of the Ring, he's the one who gets corrupted by Sauron. And he was the leader of the Istari, a wizard sent by the Valar to Middle-earth, and used technology to create the Uruk-hai by combining genes and so on. And this is also a reference to Sumer and the Anunnaki and the creation myth of man, that we were created from the Anunnaki. So here is also a reference. So a lot of things go back to Sumeria, words, terms, and technology and stuff like that. And this is interesting. I really like Tolkien in that he's saying that the strongest of them was corrupted. And it is something to it. That, for example, our politicians and so on, the ones who are into power and highest up, can fall very easily.
Yeah, and Jung did say the bigger the person, the bigger the shadow. If you don't integrate it, it will consume you.
Exactly.
No excuses.
So true, and that is very true. And that's true also in the left-hand path and the Cliff-Ortic tree. You have to be careful and do it for all the right reasons. Then we have Galadriel, another character is very important, of course. And I think Galadriel is very interesting. The mightiest and fierce of the elves in Middle-earth. And I would say she's based on different characters here, gods. Or I think Tolkien combines Sophia with Lilith and Hecate. Now we come back to Hecate. And I saw Jason talk about Hecate as well. Everyone is talking about the lady these days. But Galadriel was tempted by the ring and lost that the temptation. She made some stupid choices in the first age, if I remember correctly. And therefore, she had to linger on in Middle-earth to learn her lesson. So there's a dark side to Galadriel as well. And I make the claim that I think Lilith is a dark, a fallen Sophia, a dark Sophia. Maybe even the same goddess. Maybe the Christian Gnostic thought that Lilith is too harsh and too dark. Let's name her Sophia instead and make her a little bit brighter. That is just a thought theory.
I think there's something to it because they had the Valentinians had Achamoth and sometimes called her Ekmoth, the death wisdom. She was the dark side of the higher Sophia. So I wouldn't be surprised. And they had, of course, Prunikos, the lewd one. She was sort of the temptress side of Sophia. So there was something, I think there was this goddess that had, as you say, a shadow side and a light side.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. And I can't prove that, but there you have it. And I also think there is a Hecate in Galadriel as well, because Hecate is a healer and a motherly goddess. And Hecate, I can speak of personal gnosis because I've invoked her a couple of times, and every time I've done so, she has always healed me, healed my brain, healed my heart, made some profound things for me. I haven't come in clear communication with her, but I will, I think. And when we did the ritual in my temple, she started dance around us in Celtic patterns. And
Wow.
Tolkien is a lot about Celtic pattern and energies and Mother Earth kind of grids going on. And I feel Galadriel is an archetype of all of that in some way. That's my take. But Hecate is a wonderful goddess. And the homeopathy, my friend said, they hold Hecate in high esteem as a healer. And then we have lesser man, Boromir, a little drop off here, but still, still in the books, he's a brave warrior, right? He's a valiant warrior of Gondor, the old son of Denethor II. But Boromir falls prey to the ring and becomes corrupt by it. And this is a wonderful way for Tolkien to say that men are easy led astray, even the strong among us. So you should be very careful when you delve into esoteric stuff. Everyone can be corrupt, at least the humans, right? And even the gods, because Gandalf didn't want to carry the ring on his own. That's the reason why Frodo had to carry it. And then there's a logic to it, because a corrupt Gandalf will be much more powerful than a corrupt Frodo, right? And
Right.
Frodo can withstand it as good as Gandalf, and Gandalf didn't want to risk it. But Boromir becomes corrupt, and he dies in the Lord of the Rings. But he has a nice father as well, and then Denethor II, the king of Gondor, or rather steward of Gondor, because the king's line had died off. And of course, Aragorn is going to claim the throne as the rightful heir later on in the story. But for now, Denethor II is the steward of Gondor, and he has two sons, Boromir and Faramir. And the reason why I talk about Denethor in this presentation is, of course, it's not so much to do with esoteric stuff, but you can see how Tolkien is talking about corrupt men, right? Corrupt men in high places. And this, we can relate this to our age for sure. Our politicians, the people who rules us, they are all corrupt, rotten, and they have lost their way. And humanity doesn't care, at least for now. I don't know what it will take, but for now they are settled by being ruled by corrupted evil men. I don't know why. That's how it is. Propaganda, manipulation, of course, television and so on. So.
Yeah.
But I think Denethor II is a great example of that. Well, in the Lord of the Rings, you have the Elves as well. And the Elves are very interesting. The Elves are much older than the human race. They existed in the God's land, Aman. So they have existed very long time. And they are very powerful in Tolkien's saga, in Tolkien's myth. And this is interesting because it seems that we, or let's say it like this, the Watchers have stated that before us there were a more powerful human race. And this race become corrupted. And the reason why they become corrupted was because they gain power too fast. You can't gain power without wisdom. If you only gain power and no wisdom, you will be corrupt. You will misuse it. You will go astray. And this cousin of ours have gone astray. I don't know who they are, but we can speculate. They can be the Nordics, for example. And they can still be around. They can be the one who are involved in Atlantis. I don't know that. That's speculation. But I'm pretty sure, because the Watchers doesn't lie. I never like. They are very straightforward, and they've said we have had a cousin who was much more powerful than we were. And then you have the hobbits, of course. And the hobbits are the little people. They want to have a peaceful life. They don't have the drive to know more about the world around them. Ignorant is bliss. And remember, Tolkien was talking about in the Hobbits dinner party that he referred his audience as hobbits. The hobbits are us. It's the main man. We just want to have a good time, live in peace, don't want to know about anything. They want to have parties and eat good food and be left alone. But they don't know anything what's going on around them either. So they can fall prey very easily, especially if it is a corrupting power outside of them. And this corrupting power will come knocking on their door. And that's a very powerful statement from Tolkien. The end of the books is a little bit different from the movies, and I will discuss that. But the Hobbits is like the main man. It's like Svensson in Sweden. Svensson is a normal Swede, right? They are like very nice, gullible, and very easy to mislead. But they are nice.
Like Joe Six-Pack here in the United States.
Exactly. That's the Joe Six-Packs. But there's also a very good point Tolkien makes here. Because if you awakens to the threat and rise up to the challenge, they can do a lot of things. And if the mainstream man would wake up to reality, the game would be up. But they don't. The control game would be up. And then we have Gollum, of course. And Gollum was a hobbit, and the ring corrupted him, and it prolonged his life. And of course, Gollum loses his ring to Bilbo, and Bilbo is a hobbit who left Shire to go into adventure, and the other hobbits thought Bilbo was crazy. Of course, why leave our village and go to explore something outside of Shire when you can live a peaceful life? So Bilbo was not the first hobbit, but he's the only one mentioned, the only hobbit that Tolkien mentioned to leave. And he finds the ring and take it from Gollum. Everyone knows this. I don't have to talk about more than that. But we can clearly see how the ring corrupts. We have a very important tree in Gondor, the White Tree of Gondor. There were more than one tree, but the best known was the one in Gondor. And in the Lord of the Rings, tree had like withered and died, so their former glory was long gone. And this tree is, of course, a symbol for, I think, the tree of life. Why I draw the conclusion, I will come back to it. But for now, the tree of life is the Kabbalistic tree. You can claim that it is the right-hand path tree, while the clifford is the dark tree. So this is the tree of life. Sounds great, right? The tree of clifford, the death and darkness sounds horrible, of course. Yeah. But it's not that easy. We need both of these trees for our reality to be manifest. For us to experience, to have this experience, the both tree has to exist. But the darkness we want to hide, and the light and the life and light and love and stuff like that is good, right? So we want to avoid the darkness and go into the light. But it is also a reference maybe to Yggdrasil, of course. So it doesn't have to be one thing here. And the reason why I mentioned Yggdrasil is also that I know Tolkien was into the mythology of the Vikings, the Asa and the Celtics and so on. And tree was a very important symbol. You have the Saxon tree as well. The Romans destroyed it. So a lot of symbology with trees. So it's not only the tree of life. You can see this in the mythology of Tolkien, that the tree becomes a very important symbol. But I will come back to why I mentioned the tree of life and why I think it's in Tolkien's mind as well. So I will come back to it, but for now we will leave it. So now you have this great journey of the Hobbits, because Bilbo gets the ring from Gollum and Frodo gets the ring from Bilbo, because Gandalf wanted destroyed, and they chose Frodo to do the journey with the ring to Mordor to destroy it. So the journey starts in Shire. And as I said, Shire is the home of the Hobbits, a protected place from the outside. It is isolated from the darkness surrounding it, so it's like a safe haven, if you compare it with a lot of the other places in Middle-earth. So these Hobbits they are not very knowledgeable about the world around them. Of course, this is very important. This is a beautiful allegory for what it is. But if you change it for knowledge, the human race doesn't care about knowledge, and life is easy without knowledge, because what you don't know, you don't have to do anything about. And sometimes you don't want to know because they don't want to know. Because if they know, they might have to do something about it. But sometimes to be in the dark can be very hard, and the truth can come back at you and hurt you anyway. Your lack of knowledge or understanding doesn't save you. It only make you feel secure. On the journey towards Mordor, they pass Moria. Moria is the name given to the mountainous region in the book of Genesis. It is the place where King Solomon built his temple. And this Moria in Lord of the Rings is, of course, the caves the dwarves worked in. And this is very important, because now we know what Tolkien is talking about a little bit when we compare it to our world. They are on the way to Mordor and have to pass Moria. That is to say, they are going towards the Middle East and towards Sumeria and Babylon. And Mordor is probably a reference to Sumer or Babylon. Tolkien have more reference to the region, like Uruk or Ur or Uruk-hai, and the tower. And the tower, of course, the famous Tower of Babylon. So you can see that Tolkien used reference to our reality because he wants us to understand that this tale, this saga, is about much more than just a fairy tale. He tries to tell you something. And you can understand the deeper stuff if you start to study history, myth, and so on, religion, esoteric stuff. Now, let's talk about the ring. In the saga Lord of the Rings, it says that Sauron made 3 rings for the elves. and 7 rings for the dwarves, and 9 rings for the men. Makes it total into 19. And 19 is a sun number. And you can see the sun number in the tarot, for example, where card number 19 in the Major Arcana is the sun. So 19 rings is a sun number. And the sun is, of course, a positive, powerful force. We have Bilbo. And Bilbo in the Lord of the Rings birthday is 111. And 111 is another sun number. So you have the sun finding the one ring, and all the other rings except the one becomes the sun. And this is his birthday in Lord of the Rings. He becomes 111 before he leaves Shire for Elrond. Yeah, but we have one more ring to go. And it becomes 19 plus 1 equals 20. And 20 is a Saturn number. And that is Sauron's ring. Another reference to Saturn and to Sauron. Lord of the Rings, right? And Saturn is the Lord of the Ring. Because Saturn has rings around it. So with the one ring, it becomes 20 Saturn. And also it becomes the card Judgment in the Major Arcana, the tarot cards. So there's a judgment coming here, and we all know the judgment, of course. And then you have the famous verse, 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. And it's a binding into matter. Saturn is all about matter, hierarchy, strictures, to hold back, to restrain. And this is exactly what Sauron tries to do with the ring. But the ring is much more than that, and I have alluded to it. It is also a reference to the Qliphothic tree, to the dark tree. We talked about the tree of life before in combination to Gondor, but now we have to talk about the dark tree, the Qliphothic tree. And of course, this is the tree we use in the left-hand path. So now I have some explaining to do here, right? Well, when Frodo takes on his ring, he ends up in the Qliphothic tree, where he sees these Nazguls in their shadow form. He ends up in the shadow world. He ends up in these insets tunnels. Every tunnel that connects the Cliffa is sets tunnels. And from there, you can't be passive. You are supposed to work with these forces and transform yourself. If you are passive to these forces, well, yeah, you will be corrupt because it's not for all. If you go in there, you need to have a method. You need a map how to work with the forces to transform you, to overcome them. If you are passive and go back and forth to the Qliphothic tree, it's not what I recommend at all. Now, did Tolkien know about this? Probably not, but I think he saw the dark tree, the Qliphothic tree, as something negative altogether. The ring corrupts its user. The easiest victim is the human race. This becomes important in the 4th age, the age of man. and I will talk about it later on. But this is the reason why Gandalf chose a hobbit, because the hobbits is more resilient compared to the human race, and he hoped that Frodo will push through. And Frodo used the ring many times on his journey, or at least a couple of times, and he becomes more and more, comes closer and closer to the Dark Lord, or the Cliffotic tree, or whatever you want to, how you want to see it. The ring is an esoteric method. It is also technology. This leads to my archetype, the tower. And the tower, I talked about the tower in part 2. And this is where I agree with Tolkien here, because I don't think it's a good combination to combine technology with method, esoteric method. You don't need technology to transform. You don't need technology to communicate with the gods. You don't need technology to heal yourself. You can heal yourself through plants, through Hecate yourself. You can heal your trauma with Lilith. You can do a lot of things, much more than you can imagine. But when you add technology to it, it becomes a dangerous game. And we can see an esoteric elite, as I call them, use technology in combination with esoteric method. The ring as a symbol for power. Now we come back to the Tolkien tape. I started with the tape, and I will do some quotes from that again, just to remind you. The ring as a symbol for power. The ring a symbol for technology. Future technology. Corruption and confusion. Power to change the natural into an artificial construct. All of that, Alex and John and talked about all of that, and Tolkien, of course. And of course we have the tower itself. And in Sumeria, Babylon, it was called Etemen Anki, Kadinger Raki, Ziggurat of Babylon, because it is a ziggurat. And the ziggurat was 7-stepped. It had 7 steps. But it was much more than a temple, as an esoteric temple. It was also a banking system involved with the ziggurat, where you had the priest class who created the gold coins. So it was also a banking system. And when you start to combine all of this esoteric lore, technology, money, well, then you end up in the tower and the esoteric elite ruling the day today. Babylon's banksters, as Joseph P. Farrell called them, yeah. And I completely agree. So a quote for myself here: when the tower comes, the boatman follows, or when the boatman comes, the tower follows. So the boatman haven't come yet into this saga, but he will very soon. So you have all of this in the saga. And I think how you can understand it is that Tolkien, of course, didn't know what I know, but he read a lot of mythology and he was into the Bible and all of that. And maybe the boatman archetype came from Noah's story of Noah. The tower come from the story of the Tower of Babylon and so on. But this is the interesting thing, when he put all this myth together and create this saga of his, he come to exactly the same, almost exactly the same conclusion I have. from a different point, from a different angle. And I'm not saying that Tolkien is a left-hand path practitioner, but I say that if you do a lot of research and decode myth and understand myth and language, you will come to similar conclusion and you want to talk about it. At least Tolkien wanted to do it. And then we come to some very interesting synchronicities between me and Tolkien. So the end of the Third Age. And of course, we find card number 16 in the Major Arcana. 16 is the Tower card. The Tower has a lot of symbology in it, layers of meaning. Water, time, mem, destruction, technology, and rebirth. And it is a cigarette. And I don't think it's a far stretch to see that Tolkien looked into the tarot deck and saw symbology there. And used it in his saga. And card number 15 is, of course, the devil. And 15 is right before the tower, right? So you have 15 the devil, and then 16 the tower. And number 15, the devil, is about Saturn. And now we come back to Lord of the Rings, the tower, the eye, and all of that. And Saturn has an eye in the South Pole. It's like a storm creating an eye. So Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. And I think he combined, this is what I believe, he combined Saturn with the Samael and created Sauron from both of them. Because I have made a lot of reference to the Cliffotic Tree, to the ring, Poison of God, Saturn as Lord of the Rings, Sauron has the ring, the hierarchy, structure, limitations, the will to control all life. Now it sounds like Saturn is a bad planet, but we need structure as well, right? We need. We cannot only have chaos. Saturn is not bad. It's as always, you have to work with Saturn, work with these feelings of control. Many have control issues and become too controlling against themselves and others. Now we have to work with Saturn to transform. What Tolkien is saying is that Sauron used these forces and enhanced these forces through the ring.
Yeah, if we don't have boundaries in our lives aren't going to turn very well.
Exactly.
If we have too many boundaries, then our lives also go bad.
Exactly. You know how it is. Some people are very need control and don't like surprises. When they go to a vacation, they have a map, go from A to B, B to C, and so on, and it becomes everything else except a vacation. Kind of becomes quite stale and boring. I like to go there and see what's happening, and just be spontaneous and have fun. But one thing doesn't have to be can be both, right? Balance here.
Right. Yeah.
Now I have the boatman, of course, because the boatman comes in the end. And the boatman here is a little bit different from mine, but it's still a boatman. And the boatman here, I think Noah inspired the Genesis Bible, Old Testament inspired Tolkien with Noah, the story, maybe Gilgamesh. However, my take is that the boatman is a person who want to reincarnate back with memory intact from previous lives to continue his journey on the esoteric method to transform himself or herself further. If we forget about our previous life, we have to start all over again. In Tolkien's version, of course, the boat comes to take away the elves from Middle-earth to God's country, the Valar land, Aman. But Frodo, for his service to destroy the ring and the tower, he gets on board on this boat and goes to Aman, or the God's country, God's land, and from there he cannot return. So it's a right-hand path boatman version here, right? So he doesn't want to come back to transform himself further, but he goes away with the boat to God's country, never to come back again. And it is a boatman moment because it's a mem as well. And mem, as we discussed before, is about memory, language, nations, and so on. Water. And this is a mem moment because this is the end of the third age. A new age will appear, the age of men. And the age of elves and fantasy and magic is gone. And I think what Tolkien is talking about is our age, where we have forgot our past and forgot about the magic, forgot about nature, forgot about our own power and what can be. And I think Tolkien was very sincere about this. I think he knew that our history is a lie. And I think he wanted to take us back to a more, not more real history, but a more profound one, and in many ways more correct than what we have today, at least.
Yeah. Well, what we have today is not real. So
No.
actually, it was a more real history.
Yeah, I would argue that. But then he have, of course, made a saga out of it. But what Tolkien tries to tell you is that our history was much more fantastic and much more beautiful than they tried to make it into. And as an esoteric person, I have to say he's correct, of course.
Yeah, it's like that saying, a myth never was, but always is. So it's that history behind history.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems to be a push in this materialistic age to make everything boring and take away the fantasy, the profoundness. And myth is only myth, stories, stupid tales, and so on.
Yeah.
And it should be gray, boring matter, rules. Humans are animals. I know all of that is a lie, not because I've read Tolkien, but because I've communicated with the Watchers. And I know that there are much more to us humans than they want us to believe. Not because I've read too many fantasy books, but because I have been active in the left-hand path and done method and invocation and communicate with the gods and listen to them. So it's a lie. In the books, there is an end that they don't have in the movies, and it is a very important one. So I want to talk about it. But I understand why they took it away. The movies are very long as they are, and I'm very impressed with the effort.
Yeah.
The movies are 4 hours long, and so I really understand why they changed it. But in the movie, it is, I think it's Legolas who shoot Sauron when they are at his tower. But in the book, it's not Legolas who kills Sauron. The story doesn't end with the destruction of the tower. But when the Hobbits come back to Shire, they see that the Shire have been overtaken by Saruman and Grima. They have infiltrated the Shire, the village, and taking over. And there's a rebellion going on there. So the Hobbits fight for their life, and Saruman and Grima is burning down the village and so on. So it's chaos there. And I understand why Jackson didn't want to have it in, because it's like an ending and then an ending again.
Yeah.
This is very hard to make it into a good narrative in the movie format, but in the book format it works very well. What Tolkien tried to say here is, of course, that it doesn't matter if you turn your eyes, ears, and if you don't want to see, if evil allows to be spread, it will come at you in the end. You cannot avoid it, you can hide, but in the end you have to fight it. And this is exactly where we are at today. And few of us see this and try to do something. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I believe we human has to transform to become something new in order to survive all the onslaught going on today and the years ahead. But it doesn't mean that I'm blind to conspiracies. But for me, the esoteric theory confirms what conspiracies to listen to and not to. I'm not, it's not the other way around. So I'm quite skeptical to a lot of it. So this ending is very important. Even the hobbits in the Shire, in their willingness to turn a blind eye, had to face it in the end. They couldn't avoid it. And then the fourth age comes, and the fourth age is the age of man. And a lot of things changing in the saga. The Elves goes away. Aragorn becomes the king of Gondor. And this is the age, as I said, of men, the fourth age. But Tolkien wanted to do a follow-up to The Lord of the Rings. And this is very important for me and for my argument that he's talking about the dark tree, the Cliffotic tree. So he wanted to make a prequel called The New Shadow. And that story would take place 220 of the fourth age. And it is about secret societies, a dark cult, and a dark tree. So now Tolkien himself do some reference to the Cliffotic dark tree, the tree of knowledge, meaning that he know about it. I have a very hard time to believe that he did it. And then he tried to explain what is the story about. During the reign of Eldarion, king of Gondor, the events of the War of the Rings are now little more than solemn-headed tales to the people of Gondor, lingering only as a shadow upon the early childhood of those who lived to see it. So here, what Tolkien is talking about how fast we forget our past. And of course, mem is a more profound memory loss, where a lot of things going on, not only the memory loss. And also, when you die, you have a mem moment. You don't remember anything from your past life. That's a mem moment. But this is also kind of a mem in that we people forget very fast. If you have too comfortable, we forget about the darkness, the evil that we have left behind. And we repeat our mistakes over and over again. Nothing sticks, it seems. Repeat wars, doing the same stupid things over and over again. And this elite can do it because our memory is like 5 to 10 years, apparently. But the people in Middle-earth have forgotten about Sauron and what happened in the Third Age, and therefore they allow the darkness to enter Middle-earth again. And this time it is a cult to worship a dark tree. And of course, I would argue that that is the Qliphothic tree,
Right.
the dark tree. The tree of life, the tree of death, the tree of the Qliphots. Now, as I said, you can view it as dark, but we all have darkness in us. You can try to hide it, or you can not acknowledge it. But what we try to do, of course, to go down into our own shadow, our own darkness, and transform it in the open for us to see it. Therefore, we don't project it against others, or hopefully we become better people when we know ourselves, know our darkness. And I think it's very important for the human race to transform this huge shadow of ours. So I think you cannot avoid it, and you shouldn't avoid it, but it is not for all. But when you're ready for it, I think you should go for it. Of course, that's what I'm all about. Then we have today, the real age of man. And I cannot say some words out loud here because I don't want Miguel to have some problems. So you have to go and see the slides here. So if you only listen, please go back when you can see the slides. But this is where we are at today and the problems we face. The new tower is rising, and I've made that argue. And I think they have worked on it for a very, very long time. Ever since the Nebuchadnezzar wanted to raise a new tower. Nebuchadnezzar never did it in Sumeria, but we know that he freed not Nebuchadnezzar himself, but Cyrus the Great, freed the Jewish people, and they rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem. And that temple was called Zerubbabel, or from Babel. And the Tower of Babel is really ziggurats. You have these towers. It's not the pyramid in Giza is a ziggurat, is a Tower of Babel as well. But the most famous one is Tower of Babylon. And I've talked a lot about this Tower of Babylon and what it's all about. And it's a technology, but it's much more than that. And it's a lot of symbology. And in the aim is to reconnect to Sirius, to have it in short. And Sirius number 33, and you have the Freemasons. It's kind of Mordekites, modern Mordekites. I'm not saying that all Freemasons are evil, but I think there is in a higher up of the Freemason hierarchy, you will find some real players into this, and they want to rebuild the third temple. The second temple was destroyed by Romans 70 after death after Christ. Now they want to rebuild the third one, and they are making some progress in Jerusalem to do that right now. And I think the temple, the towers are a structure in a much bigger infrastructure. They try to put together. And I think they have used us to put their technology together. They need us as their workers. This is a global phenomenon. It's not just a local tower like Jerusalem. It's spread all over the planet as an infrastructure, a grid. During the common years ahead, I do not become a brick in that tower they are building right now. You don't want that. You want to be a human. You want to be in flesh. Because
I
your
can
body...
hear Pink Floyd playing right now.
Because you can do so much with your body. You don't have a clue. Your body is your alchemical temple. And when you start to be able to control the energy, your body fluids in your body, you can do a lot of things. And I approve that to myself. And it's a method. Many of you can do the same. A left-hand path is not for all, but there are other methods you can use to have results with. You can heal yourself. For the most part, when I do the ritual to Hecate, she comes to me at night and heal me, and I feel her energy start to control my energy and take it over my body. And the last time she take contact with my brain, and I said, "Oh," she had a very nice feeling. At the same time, she took contact with my heart, so they were connected in a very profound way. Very powerful stuff. Lucifer, when I do ritual Lucifer, it comes to me in a more profound, straightforward way. Download a lot of alchemical symbols into my third eye. Exactly like in the Lawn Mover Man. If you have seen the Lawn Mover Man.
Yeah.
Exactly like that.
Wow.
So you download a lot of alchemical symbols. Sometimes they show me profound stuff from the Old Testament. So these things are real. You can contact them. You can do a lot of things. You don't need technology to do that. The elite need technology to do that because they have lost their spark, their soul. Now, you can't really lose your soul, but if you're convinced that you don't have the soul, then that's your reality. If they believe they don't have the soul, then that becomes their reality. It doesn't have to become yours, even though they try to convince you of that. That's a lie. If you ask materialistic atheists, they tell you you're an animal without a soul. If you believe that, if you buy into that, then that's your reality. Then you don't have a soul. That's a lie. I approve it to myself, and you can prove it to yourself as well. You don't have to listen to crazy Swede talking about Lord of the Rings, but you can do the method. And on the conference, I will share some of the experience with Hecate and the invocation and
Good.
some method.
Share some tools too, so people can use them.
Yeah, and maybe I will film some in my temple when I do the ritual and so on.
That'd be great. Wonderful. Yes.
And Hecate is a wonderful goddess. Don't believe in the propaganda of evil, darkness. Don't contact this, don't contact that. Be careful with what you wish for, and you need proper respect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need your temple intact, with your soul in it, with your spark in it. Now you can do whatever. Don't allow them to tell you what you can or cannot do. That is exactly what they want to. The ring is about manipulation. This is manipulation with words.
Mm-hmm.
So do not become a brick in the tower. In the tower, they have raised this 5G network. That's all to connect us. So we are all connected now. They didn't give us the internet to be kind. They had an idea, a plan. Now, when they did this, when they gave us internet, DARPA and CERN, they did it. When they did, we have some good outcomes from it. We can connect with each other. They are not stupid. They know that when they gave us internet, they pushed the start button to the end. times, to the apocalyptic times. Now, either we wake up before they put this system together, or we will not wake up as the human race anymore. We will become something different, a transhumanistic android. Now, did Tolkien know about this? No, but he's talking about technology, and imagine what they can do with this. He understood how bad it can become. Exactly what it can become, he didn't know. But he had a hinge when he was talking about computer chips, Terminator, and so on, computer robots and stuff like that. I don't think even Tolkien knew how bad it would be, how bad it will have become, I would say. And of course, this is the network with 5G. And of course, we had 4G, 3G, and the internet before. But as always, they upgrade the technology. They gave us the mobile phone, and from the beginning, you can text message, take some calls. Now now it's a computer. It's crazy. So they add stuff to it, and then they start to add the connection. 3G, are you stupid? It's too slow. Now we need 4G. It's 4G, it's too slow. Now we need 5G. And on they go. And this is exactly what they've done with the pyramids on the Giza Plateau as well, I think. But I think the most profound structure on Giza Plateau, the pyramids, was from the beginning, and then they stripped it from technology. And then later culture came along and tried to understand what was there and made something different out of it. This is the new tower, and it is all about wires, electricity, plastic, metal, and so on. And now I cannot say the word out loud, but if you look into the eye of the tower, you will get what I mean. And this is the thing that will connect you to this network. So please don't do it, and you have to take care of yourself and understand that this wizards Tolkien is talking about are very real. This is an esoteric elite using technology in combination with esoteric method to have certain results. They don't like the human race. Some watchers have talked about that our enemy, our main enemy, is the humans without soul. It's the soulless ones. It's the psychopaths. These people doesn't have any feelings for you. They cannot feel empathy. They are psychopaths. Now, I don't know why it is so hard to understand that a psychopath doesn't have any feeling. They are not like you. I wouldn't do that. No, that's good. Good for you. But they would. They know, as well as I know, that esoteric method works. It works absolutely. It's not a fantasy. And therefore, if you add technology to it, you can have a lot of different results, and a very powerful and very scary stuff can be done. And these people have lost the spark, lost the soul. Their way back to source is closed. They will not go back to source, the creator. They cannot use their body as a temple, as an alchemical temple, to transform themselves in that way. They can use esoteric method to get in contact with the astral world and so on, but they are stuck there. What I'm telling you is that you can go much further than they do. Therefore, they don't like you. They don't want you to awaken. They want you gone. They want your soul. They want your spark. They want you to become like them, and even birth off like an android. That's their goal here. Because they know that if you awaken and take back your power, you will be a very powerful being, and they will have a problem. The best way is to convince you that you're an animal without a soul. If you buy into that, that is what it is, then they have you. All this garbage they teach you in universities are, for the most part, nonsense. Now, I'm happy that I went to university in order to, I know how to write, how to put a text together and so on. I have learned a lot of things I have used for. But for now, if you want to transform, if you want to help humanity, you have to leave that behind. Now you have to go into another paradigm, an esoteric paradigm, and leave parts of the lies behind you. I cannot prove it to you, but you can prove it to yourself. And I have proved that to myself. Therefore, I'm not worried at all to talk about this. Now let's go back to what Tolkien, Alex, and the Tolkien Society talking about here. The ring, a symbol for technology and power. Future technology. Power to change the natural into an artificial construct. This is the quotes from the tape. They use technology to mislead nations. The magicians distance themselves from nature. Destruction of the natural in favor of the unnatural. They play a multidimensional chess game. The public barely plays checkers. The Babel builders. What is their next move? And I think I know what their next move is. And I think we have to fight it. I think we have to come together. I think we need to help each other out. And I think we have to, you cannot wake up the human race. You cannot go nagging and talk conspiracy theories with them. But you can do a lot of things, actually. If you tell people that, no, I refuse to go along, and then they see that you were right. I refuse to go along, and I'm happy to tell people that and remind them of it. I'm fine today. I didn't go along. Nothing happened. But if we try to lie and say, I went along when we didn't because we want to be left alone, then you can't say that I didn't go along. Now you can make a statement. Look at me. I'm fine. Probably more fine than you are. I'm happy, doing a lot of things. I'm not sick all the time. Then you can show an example, and that's the best way to go about it. And let's hope that people will wake up and start to work on themselves. For me, it's very important that we work and transform through an esoteric method to become something more. That is the solution for the human race. We can talk about a lot of stuff, but that will not save humanity in the end. But we need to protect ourselves against stupidity because we don't want to fall prey or destroy our alchemical temple, because this is the thing that will transform you. You need your alchemical temple intact as a human with soul and spirit and spark. Now you can start to work on yourself. If you allow them to destroy that, then you cannot transform. Therefore, it is important to know what's going on. And I think Tolkien put it in a very, very profound way in his books, if you understand what he tries to tell you. And this is The Lord of the Rings. And I think Tolkien was a profound storyteller with an important message. And don't allow them to tell you that Tolkien just writes stupid stories, fantasy tales, because they view some interviews that BBC made with him. He didn't like to talk to them because he knew that he tell me what it's about in 10, 20 minutes and they will not understand a thing.
Mm-hmm.
He just played with them. He didn't want to talk to them. I would do the same. You have to mesmerize people to go into the labyrinth on their own to discover this. Otherwise, you cannot do it. That is exactly what Stanley Kubrick did with his movies. And if you see some parallels here, I'm always nagging about this cliff-haunted tree. But I think there is a connection here. I think Stanley Kubrick saw this in The Wizard of Oz, in Tolkien, and said, wow, I want to make my own movie with the same theme, but I want to do it even better. I want to do it this way. So I think there is a connection. I don't think they did it isolated from each other as such. I cannot prove that Kubrick knew Tolkien or he was his friend or anything, but I think Tolkien inspired Kubrick. And I know that Kubrick read a lot and studied a lot. Esoteric stuff, myth, religion, psychology.
Yeah. He loved Jung. He loved Robert Graves,
Jung.
The Golden Bough. So Kubrick was all into that.
Yeah. So therefore, I think he was inspired by Tolkien. So if you wonder why I always go back to the cliff-haunted tree and try to analyze every movie or book with it, I think there is a connection here. That is what I try to tell you. So one more very interesting thing in all of this is that Tolkien was a professor in language. So it was about mem, because mem is about language, nations, memory, and so on. And he was a professor in language. And I think language is important. The Bible, for example, was written in Greek. If you want to understand the Bible, you need to know Greek and the Hebrew letters and alphabet. So when people try to understand the New Testament through through English and so on, it's ridiculous, people. I'm sorry to say. They have drawn some horrible conclusions, and it's very sad for the human race. And I know that Jordan B. Peterson says Christianity made West into this culture, and it was important for the Enlightenment and so on. It's all nonsense. The knowledge and the West, it come from like Persia, Plato, Sumeria, Babylon, and further way back. And Christianity just dumbed it down and made it a mess out of it. And this is through language or misunderstanding. You have to go back to the language. And I think Tolkien, because he was a professor in language, understood things in a more profound way for the most part. When he read this myth and he saw something very profound in them, and he put it together and made this beautiful story, this beautiful saga. And I think it's based on a lot of truth, because it's based on myth, and myth ain't only myth. The academia want to believe that no people write profound stuff outside of academia, or that so much strange conclusions that I don't know where to start. Yeah, this is my decode of The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. And I really hope that you have liked my presentation. And
I loved it. It was great, yeah, and it
I-
ties into all your work before the boatman, and of course the Anunnaki. So it's yeah, it's really beautiful. And again, I love you always bring inspiring stuff. It's not a sad story at the end. There is a happy ending if you just
yeah,
open your eyes.
it is. Yeah, Frodo overcomes that, and it's a hopeful message if people awaken to the darkness. We
Yeah,
will win.
we will. That's for sure. There is a few super chats. One is from H.P. Lovecraft. Of course, he had to come. He doesn't want Tolkien to get all the esoteric attention. This writer wants to be there. But H.P. Lovecraft, thank you very much, writes, does David believe that Odin's ring, Draupnir, was used as an inspiration for the Ring of Power? The ring was on Baldur's funeral pyre and eventually returned from hell, the opposite story of Lord of the Rings. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Tolkien tried to combine different myth, and he probably come across that as well. Yeah, I have to say yes to that. What I see for the most part in Lord of the Rings is that he combines a lot of myth into one
Mhm.
profound thing, but it's a combination. And this is not a new thing to Tolkien. If you read the Old Testament, they combine different characters. Moses is not only Moses, it's a combination of different characters put into one to tell a story. Because you can't write all about it, it's easier to have it in you have to
Yeah, I mean,
synthesize things.
Darth Vader is a mixture of Doctor Doom and Nazis and, all these things. It's
Yeah,
not just one character.
no. And so I really think I have to say yes to that.
All right. And then, well, thank you very much, Chester, for your support. As always, I really appreciate it. And then we've got Mr. God Knows. David is right about the craft. Remember Robert Calvi? I'm not familiar with that. Are you?
No, Robert Calvi. I have to check it out.
Yeah. God Knows usually has some good takes, or always has some good
Yeah,
takes in the
yeah.
comments. I'm sure there's something important to that. Yeah, those are super chats. Graham, do you have a comment or a question as we get to the end?
I was going to say one of my observations was going more from the books with that return to the Shire. And it's, I always took it as the idea of they had left the innocence of the Shire and fought corruption away and defeated it, only to return and find that corruption had actually infiltrated their innocence while they were gone. And they had to defeat it once again upon their return in order to, basically, final part of the hero's journey, bring it back home and bring it in, basically return the village and the Shire back to what it once was. Tag.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful.
And
sure.
my question, who would be the cognate or parallel with, well, you talked about, again, you talk about the villain Sauron being Saturn. What about Melkor / Morgoth? Who would you associate him with?
Yeah, that's a good question, Miguel. I think Morgoth is more like the Christian form of a devil, like kind of, because that is how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
For various reasons. Sauron seems to be somehow in the Cliffotic tree, and therefore you have all. Yeah, I have to say Christian God the devil.
Yeah, that's one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one, Dr. Lance Owens, did a lot of work on the Gnostic things in Lord of the Rings, and he mentions that when you have the beginning and Melkor goes to get the Discord, the thing, the darkness is already there waiting for him. The powers are there. So it's almost like, and Tolkien actually had to change that a bit in his later editions because he got criticism from the Catholics, like, what's this Manichaean, Gnostic, Zoroastrian thing where light and darkness coexist? We can't have that, you know? But so Melkor could be, sort of a rebellious Lucifer, an Ahriman kind of figure, or something like that.
Yeah. A lot of Gnostic people talk about Ahriman, so he could be like Ahriman, and Ahriman is the darkness in the Mithra and Zoroastrianism, and Ahriman is for sure a very dark force. But once again, you're supposed to work with it and transform it as well. But Ahriman can be a good take.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Well, I think we are at the end. Yeah, saw great comments. Thank you.
I got one more observation. One more question for him. It's my favorite character from the Silmarillion, which is the complex nature of Feanor. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Graham. I don't remember. It was a long time I read Silmarillion now.
But maybe a different time then. Maybe a different time.
But I will read it again now because now I'm very into it. But I read it when it was 20 years ago, and I read it 2 times. And I was very taken by it because I've just read Lord of the Rings, and then I went into Silmarillion. And when you do that, you have a much more profound understanding of the Lord of the Rings. So if you haven't read Silmarillion, I highly recommend it. And I remember I really, really liked it.
I love it. Yeah, it's the same here. It's been like 10 years, so I have to go back and reread it to get. But I love it. Yeah, sometimes more than Lord of the Rings. Well, cool. Well, again, we are at the end. Tomorrow, actually, I think you'll enjoy our AB Live as we are joined by Maja Daou. She will be discussing shadow astrology, and very much like David, it looks like it's coming out. As David talks a lot about the tree of life and the shadow tree of death, Maja is going to show us that there is a whole shadow astrological chart and zodiac that most people miss, and we must look at this shadow world that exists in astrology. And it will, like David's work, it really adds a new dimension and increases the healing and understanding about the psyche, the soul, and the universe itself. So slowly but surely, David, this left-hand path shadow ideas is starting to take fire.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I will come to the conference and I will try to share some rituals and experience with Hecate with you and the audience, and talk about it and see what we can get from that. Yeah, and I remember, it would be wonderful to meet you all, of course. And
that's the best part, probably just friendship, just like the Hobbit coming back to the Shire and just enjoying the company of friends.
Yeah, it's wonderful. One more thing, when Graham talked about Silmarillion, I remember one thing I forgot is the spider. Do you remember the spider, the big spider?
Of course.
What was the name of the spider?
Shelob? I think that's...
Yeah, something like that. It was a huge spider.
Yeah, there's
very close to destroy everything. And the spider Frodo is encountering in Mordor is her offspring.
That's it.
And this is very interesting because when you enter the Qliphothic tree and the tunnels, you encounter a lot of spiders, shadow spiders, and spiders as it is everywhere. And we call the spider lady Arachne, and Arachne is this huge spider goddess. So the spider is a very strong archetype into the human psyche. And there's also one more reference to the Qliphothic tree from Tolkien. So I think he knew I think he knew about it somewhat, at least. How much, I don't know, and I can't prove it. But
plus, when you go down into the collective unconscious, you're bringing stuff back. You're discovering. It doesn't mean you even knew it, and you're using these symbols that are universal.
Exactly. So you don't know, but he's talking about the return of the Dark Tree as his next book and so on. It wasn't made, and I think he did correct there, because you had a profound ending with the Lord of the Ring, and if he would start all over again, it's very easy, when series on television goes on and on and on, they destroy it in the end and get lost, and it's not good.
No, not at all. Awesome. Well, Graham, thanks for keeping us company on this odyssey across Middle Earth.
Oh, great as always. Looking forward to the next time.
Always too. Yes, definitely, David. We should talk about our next show in the future beyond the conference. But as always, David, really appreciate bringing your revelations, your hard work, and all your very excellent research.
Thank you, Miguel. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and looking forward to meet you and Graham again, and on the conference.
For sure. All right, everybody. Well, again, join us tomorrow night for Maja Dao. It's going to be another sizzling show. And and again, for those of you having a holiday weekend, be careful out there while you're driving, because Joe Six-Pack might have had a few drinks. Take care. Don't go crazy. And for everybody else, have a great weekend. And as I always say, yes, write your own gospel, live your own myth. Take care, everybody.